Okay, so again, all right. So we're back again. So hopefully now we can see how that makes sense. Now we're going to go over here. How can we explain what happens here? Okay, so we have 29 over 24 times 29 over 24, which is more or less the expanded version of this. But can't we cancel? What is 12 over 24? Well, if we divide 12 by 12, we get 1. And if we divide this by 12, we get 2, right? Even a timetable will tell you that. So let's see what happens when we do that. So that would mean that 29 times 29, we still have 29 squared up here. And after simplifying this, we realize that the denominator will always be 24 times 2 or 24 plus 24. So 24 plus 24, 48, or 24 times 2, 48. So that will be the next step to all of this. And then of course we'll square 29. Now what if instead of saying 29 times 29, we said 30 minus 1 times 30 minus 1? What would happen when we expand this? Well, believe it or not, we end up with this. 30 times 30, 900. 30 times minus 1, minus 30. Minus 1 times 30, minus 30. Minus 1 times minus 1 is a plus 1. Minus 30 plus minus 30 is minus 60. You subtract that from 900 to get to 840. Add that to 1. Here you go. Promise you if you put that in the calculator, you'll get 841. So we're going to use that instead of 29 squared. That should hold up in the court of mathematics. So now, we're saying that this is the same as that. 29 times 29 gives you 841, right? So the 29 squared is fine. But the square of 24, when divided by 12, that will give you 48, right? And the reason why we showed you the 24 times the 24, well, 12 over 24 is 1 over 2. So now we have 2 times the 24 and we have 48 right there, right? This will always happen every time you end up with this situation. So to save yourself the trouble, square the top, which is what happens. Take this number, add it to itself, 24 plus 24 is 48. So you can use that as your shortcut, right? So that takes care of that part on the right. Now what do we do with that? So we're going to have to multiply minus 60 by 48 over 48. I think we can get rid of this now, since we know that this is the same as this and we used it to replace what we had here. Hence why we have this. So we can rub this out, right? And then now we can focus on turning this into a fraction with a denominator of 48. Okay, so 48 times 2 is 96. 96 times 3, yeah, that's only like 288. So let's just write that there. Okay, so we're going to replace that 60 with this. Because, I mean, we could always do the real division for it to show you that it actually works. We could do that too if you want it. Okay, so we underline the 2. Smaller than 48. Underline the 8. Smaller than 48. Let's underline this 8. And now let's start counting this way. So we counted 6. So we're going to put the number 6. And so now we have a remainder of 0. You can put the 0 there. 0 is less than everything. So you're going to put 0 right there again. So just a little proof that it actually works. All right. Let's do the replacement then. All right. So that's what we have right here. So let's get rid of the rough work. All right. So now we can add this number to this one. Oh, they share the same denominator, so why not? Okay, so what is that going to be? Now, here's the fun thing about these numbers, right? Think about 3,600. That is the square of 60, right? So let's write it down. So let's write 3,600, which is the square of 60. Now imagine what the square of 61 would be, right? This is a little bit more than 3,600. So we've estimated. So why don't we expand this? So let me write it now. 60 plus 1 times 60 plus 1. Let us write the result of that. All right. See? 61 squared is equal to this. So if we square root this, we're going to get 61 on the top right here. Yeah? No. This is A. This is 2A. This is 4A. If you square 2A, you'll get 4A all squared. But 4A times A is also 4A all squared. That means this times this is the same as squaring this denominator right here. So that's a fun fact you want to bear in mind, right? So whatever this is, if you multiply it by this number, it will be the same as the square of 24. Right? We cannot always easily find the square of 24. We can do that if you want. So why not do that for the fun of it? All right, let's try and get a close-up, right? Let's multiply this by this, and then this by this, and this by this, and this by this. So let's write that out. And ladies and gentlemen, would you look at this? 20 times 20, 400. 20 times 4, 80. 4 times 20, 80. 4 times 4, 16. 80 plus 80, 160. Add that to 16, 176 plus 400. There you go, right? So the square of 24 is 576. What would you get if you multiply 48 by 12? What is that? Well, that's 12 by 12 by 4. So what, 144 times 4? Let's put that over here. Will we indeed get 576? Well, 16 plus 1 is 17. And then 4 plus 1 is 5. So yes, the proof is in the pudding, as they say. Eh? So there we go. Yeah, that's proof of that. So do we have a clue how we jumped from this to this? Well, you add this fraction to the left and you add that fraction to the right. Now the next step is to multiply 1 over 12 by both sides, right? So you multiply this by 1 over 12 and that by 1 over 12, and then you will see what happens next. Okay, right, so let's cancel this. And now, finally, we square root the left and the right. So now it looks just like this, and our next step will be, all right, so now we get to minus 29 over 24 from both sides. And then we go from this to the grand finale looking something like this. That's it. Right, once you're here, you're pretty much at the end. All right, so that was another episode of Only One First Person Tutor.